Hello, everyone. Welcome to our discussion series on neurophysiotherapy approaches. For this discussion, we have Mr. Hariom with me. We both are going to discuss the neurophysiotherapy approaches in terms of how it began and what is the context in which they all have developed in this part one. We hope that this discussion will set the stage for us to learn more in depth about these approaches, its value, especially in clinical practice, and also from a research perspective, what are its value. Right. So I'm going to start this discussion with a simple and direct question. That is, what does these approaches mean? I mean, for you, what does it represent when we say neurophysiotherapy approaches?
If you take a historical view, most of medicine was developed from a biological plausibility or a mechanistic approach that, okay, if I put one and one, I will get two, that kind of understanding. So along with that, they added their own observations and they sort of put it all together as a treatment. And if it happened in also physiotherapy also, and when sort of some brilliant people did that, there were a bunch of followers for them. So I think that is what is basically an approach in physiotherapy. Biological plausibility with good observation and a bunch of followers.
One of the common understanding among physiotherapists, to be specific, is that I think these approaches are often viewed as a method of treatment. That is, there are different ways to treat, and this is one way of treating patients. And obviously, people who choose a particular method often seems to think this is the best method of treatment. So what do you think about looking at this approach as a method of managing patients?
No, again, as I told you, these approaches had a bunch of followers who didn't, in a sense, they are not following science, they are following the guru, if you will. That sort of makes it iffy science where you tend to follow the guru rather than the science, which the direction of the science. So I think that is one of the reasons why everybody thinks that this is the method or a method for doing treatment. But as we all know now, we should be following which is the best method, not a method or this method or that method. We just have to follow the best method, right? But sadly, as you know, because they had this cult-like status where there is a guru and there is a bunch of followers, they did not need a evidence to follow. They just needed the guru to tell go the side.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And also, there is a practice among physiotherapists based on this not specifically neurophysiotherapy approach, but physiotherapists often tends to identify themselves with a set of treatment technique or approach that they would say, I'm a PNF therapist, or I'm an NDT therapist, or even you have
certified SI therapist also.
Yeah, right. So I think this is sort of creates some kind of I don't know if it is a divide, but there is identifying oneself with a specific set of treatment techniques can be detrimental to the development of profession as a whole. And one problem whenever this is being pointed out is that it is often seen as a personal attack on a particular approach. rather than looking beyond that.
Yeah, this is classical tribalism, right? I belong to this tribe, and you can't attack my tribe because my tribe is the best tribe in the world, and we are the chosen people of the God, and that kind of nonsensical ideas comes when you're part of a tribal cult-like system rather than part of science. If science is telling you go this side, you follow that. We don't do that. We become this tribalistic. We get this tribalistic mentality naturally after paying 2 lakhs to 20 lakhs or whatever lakhs you are spending. You want to identify with that tribe, and you think that the tribe is the guiding path or the guiding light or something like that rather than science. And if somebody attacks the tribe, you bind with your tribe and sort of you attack them, mostly in a personal nature rather than in scientific.
I'm hoping that the discussion series, what we are starting, is would help people to look at these things critically with
Right,
the patient in the center, not
right,
not the particular approach in the center and revolving around it. When I say
right.
patient, I meant the outcome of the patient in the center. That's what the position, or if you want to call it an approach, that we want to take, that what benefits the patient. And we will be discussing all these approaches in terms of how or to what extent it contributes to the benefit of the patient.
Benefit of the case.
Yeah,
Sure.
right. The next question which I wanted to ask is, these neurophysiotherapy approaches as a whole has a certain kind of aura around it. If you could call certain a glamour attached to it.
Yeah, because
Partly,
I have seen people, sorry, I've seen people finishing PhD saying that certified NDT therapist. What did you attended a 10-day course and you
yeah,
call yourself certified therapist, but you have finished PhD. You, how is that? I don't know.
exactly.
Right,
Among neurophysiotherapists, it is always a sense of pride is attached to it. A professional pride is attached to it when they attended a course or considered themselves having uh, expert level skill in learning an approach. I still remember that when you taught us our approaches, right? That to people who did not know, Mr. Hariom is also a teacher of mine who taught me neurophysiotherapy. Right at that time, the approaches was taught like one approach in 1 hour. That was the way. That is how approaches are first introduced, and many of us were very excited when we know that this is topic is going to be held, because we always talk about these approaches, and because uh, there is a sense of expertise is attached to it. It is also considered a topic where not fit for students, because approaches.
and also probably we all think that most of the physiotherapists cannot teach these things
Yeah, yeah.
if you are not specifically trained by a specific guru or something like that.
Yeah, that is, I think that myth has been broken when you start teaching these approaches. And most of us were very excited to attend this course. I mean, the class it was like, I think 3 or 4 hours it was taught, each approach 1 hour. Right. So I still remember how much we felt good in terms of, even though we didn't really understand what exactly it is. And also, to
Sure.
if you're a student who's watching this, you got to understand that you don't understand an approach by attending a course, by attending 1 hour or even a week. Of course, it's not possible. It's a process. So except that, how well that process is initiated, and next it's the student's responsibility how well you take this to practice to next continuously learning about it. So what I was getting at it, it was taught to me, I'm taught to whole of my class. I think it has had an impact. It has removed what to say, that aura around it was removed, at least for us, or at least for me, is that I never saw these approaches as something only experts will understand and so on. Of course, I have read more about it later. I mean, I've had this obsession of learning about it. I have searched for every resource available. I mean, with whether it's adult,
Naturally,
yeah,
naturally. Otherwise, it doesn't. You can't understand it.
yeah. And there was adult hemiplegia book was, and Brunstrom's another book was there, which is again, it's not easily available. And for roots approach, you hardly find any book. And for
Right.
PNF, there is a book. I had all these books with photocopies of all the books, and I repeatedly read, and it took really a lot of time to understand. But to come to it, I'm sure I'm very much aware that not many students gets this opportunity to learn approaches or even have a class as part of their undergraduate program. Same goes for post-graduation programs also. So that means that people who think this is some expert level learning, but not taught in the colleges, that has led to a lot of people who are teaching this outside of the academic setting in terms of workshops and courses. And what goes in these courses is eh, it's entirely a different thing, and that's
Right. Right.
what I have heard and learned is that I wouldn't call them as any educational experience at all. And So why is that people don't teach? You are one of the most experienced teacher in neurophysiotherapy, what I have known.
Right.
Why people don't teach it in colleges?
Well, this is a it's a vicious cycle. I didn't learn in college, so how do I teach that for my
Yeah.
students? So this vicious cycle which keeps on going. Uh, 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 but if you really take some time, it doesn't need much of time. If you take some time, you can understand these things, and so you need some one person to break the cycle, right? If you teach it probably to your students when they come to teaching, probably another 5 or 10 years, they may start teaching it. So this cycle has to be broken somewhere, and also the cycle has to be broken not by attending very expensive courses, because then your basic understanding will be that I have invested X amount of money. How will I get X amount of money? It is not about teaching it, right? So this has to be broken down. Somebody should start to teach this in the college, and we should have sort of a better syllabus and things like that to have an impact or in terms of as a learning goal, right? If it is not in your exam, if it is not in your exam question paper, nobody is going to read it.
Yeah.
If you just have it in the syllabus. Right?
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, because of the experience that I have had when I first got the opportunity to write a syllabus for my university, I ensured that there is PT approaches in physiotherapy. There is one chapter is there, and I can
Right.
probably say that is one among very, very few syllabuses. And I teach it
Yeah.
regularly, and every year in undergraduation. This is not in post graduation. In undergraduation, because I'm not very sure if the topic is suitable for post graduation. So
Yeah, you're exactly right, because in post graduation, if at all, the objective should be evidence based, not approach based.
yeah. So I teach it, and some of my students also have had similar experiences of that myth is taken away, and they are just They don't have this feeling of, oh, this is something great, and we didn't know we have to we have to attend courses to learn. That went away. So I so not teaching the course have made these neurophysiotherapy approaches more of a black box that everyone wants to learn, but it's not easy to learn about it. This is the status that's come. And in my opinion, one of the reason it is not taught is that there is a lack of resources or reading material available. Because if you see, if a young teacher who comes into teaching, and even if he or she has this inclination to teach, so first they will have to learn, right? So for them to learn, even if they have not learned in their colleges, if for them to learn, there's hardly any resources that are available. I can share my experience of when I've tried to search for information, no textbook talks about it. It continues to be an irony even today that is an approach that is given so much of importance, but no books writes about even in a briefly. And I still remember there was one occupational therapy book, Trombley, in which there is a chapter is written. It's a decent book for you to explanation of what is there, but I don't think a lot of people have had access to it, to that book, and they continue to face this problem of not learning. So how did you manage to teach this where there were no resources?
uh, uh, when my infatuation with Bobat started in college, I had a book when I was in college, which was a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox,
Yeah.
probably. So I didn't have a slightest clue what
Just
it
to
was
give
saying.
a historical context for millennials, Xerox was very expensive during that time, and it is not easily accessible everywhere.
Right. So I didn't I didn't have much of understanding except for the reflex inhibitor postures, which was sort of it's easy to understand if you read that book. Other than that, it was difficult. So I tried it out on some people. Later on, I sort of added on to that uh, via reading a book called as Adult Hemiplegia and Bobat, um, which to be, as you can also vouch to that, not an easy book to understand. Even an easy book to
Yeah.
read at all. It just doesn't go anywhere. I just I have read uh, many books, but it just it's, a, it's, a, it's not just an horribly written. It just doesn't go anywhere.
Sometimes I
Um,
feel that the book was deliberately written to make it
Probably.
so hard, so that again people will think that no, this is very hard, so high level content is given. So
uh,
I still remember there's this the entire Bobat approach. I think you have explained it probably in one sentence, which is abnormal tone leads to abnormal movement. Normal tone leads to normal movement. That's what the whole of Bobat book basically talks about, I think.
correct. And the issue was um, talk with people who have attended Bobat course with Bobat and Patricia. They used to teach that. That is, they used to have a German word for that. Probably I should have asked my son before starting this. Where they were keeping on saying inhibit in German. So, but after the 90s, when Patricia Davis was teaching it, suddenly they started saying uh, activate. So the book is not very clear on which direction it is going, even though it says in the book which was written in the 90s, the Neuro book, the last book Bobat
Yeah.
wrote, it talks about not worried about reflex inhibiting posture, but activating. But it's not very clear how activating is thought of, because hardly in the whole of book you will have two lines about learning.
Yeah.
So if you're not talking about learning, how are you activating anything, right? So that is the problem of reading that. But uh, PNF, we had a slightly easier time. I read it with along with our mutual friend Vasanth. We had an easier time because the books are far more clearer. The physiology is far more clearer. We also did some sort of silly uh, make at home experiments to understand what is going on there also. Because there some of the experiments we can do it. It will not be perfect, but we can have some understanding of it. So PNF was fairly easy for us to understand because there is a lot of good material. But Bobat and Brainstorm, it's a huge headache. There's no question.
Yeah. So yeah, I also feel that there is this issue needs to be addressed if we want people to know about approach for what it is rather
Yeah.
than what it is proposed as, or people
That is
keep.
it, not necessarily as a practicing tool, but at
Yeah.
least for the understanding of what it means, right?
Um, I have a plan, and I hopefully I will execute it. Is that two things that there is a book, a simple, probably less than 20 pages book on each approach. I mean,
Right.
all approaches just in 20 pages. This is a selling
So you
point
actually get
nowadays.
a phonogram of
Yeah, yeah. Nowadays, to sell a book to the students, you need to start with how many pages they have, because even if you're going with the presentation, when you're opening a presentation, the first thing they will see is that the number of slides that we have. Their attention span is uh, it's
right.
changed, if I have to say.
Uh,
Right. And also an online courses also I'm planning, probably, sort of MOOC course and so on, so that this horror can be minimized, and then everybody will know what it is, and then people can make a judgment with whether they want to go ahead with what they have done.
extensive reading or something like that.
Yes, right. So I think we can conclude today's session with this. And if you having any other thing that you wanted to add before we conclude, or you
Yeah,
want to summarize?
I would suggest, even though whatever approaches which we have, that is from PNM to ASI, these are not, I'm not sure these are practicing tools, but you need to have an understanding for two things. One is not reinventing the wheel so that you don't do the same mistakes again and again what it was already written. And also to have a sort of, there are a lot of just buzzwords in all these things without a proper understanding of these things, what it means also. So to remove those two things, I think we have a clearer understanding of what these approaches.
Okay, so if you have questions about what we have discussed, or if you have questions about what we you want us to discuss about, you can put it in the comment section of this video. And after watching so many YouTube videos, I guess I have to end it with asking you to subscribe to this channel. Okay, we'll see you the next week. Yes, there's a bell icon is there. Subscribe.